Wir haben eine interessante Diskussionsrunde vor uns und ich freue mich sehr, unser internationales Panel auch moderieren zu dürfen. Ich möchte die Teilnehmerinnen und den Teilnehmer kurz vorstellen, bevor wir in die Vorträge gehen. Özlem Demirel ist Mitglied im Europäischen Parlament für die Partei Die Linke. Sie ist stellvertretende Vorsitzende im Unterausschuss für Sicherheit und Verteidigung. Özlems politisches Wirken ist geprägt vom Kampf für Frieden und Abrüstung. So gehörte sie schon 2001 und 2002 als junge Schülerin zu den Organisatorinnen der Schülerinnen-Demonstrationen gegen die Kriege in Afghanistan und im Irak. Özlem wird in ihrem Beitrag uns vorstellen, wie aus ihrer Sicht der Angriffskrieg gegen die Ukraine einzuordnen ist und wie Gewerkschaften darauf reagieren müssen. Ein herzliches Willkommen, Özlem. Jeremy Corbyn, Gewerkschaftsfunktionär, seit 1983 Mitglied des britischen Unterhauses, von 2015 bis 2020 Vorsitzender der Labour Party. Nach einer beispiellosen Kampagne gegen seine Person ist er seit 2020 fraktionsloser Abgeordneter im Parlament. Im vergangenen Jahr fordert Jeremy gemeinsam mit Ece Temekuran und Yannis Varoufakis in der Athener Erklärung einen sofortigen Waffenstillstand, den Rückzug der russischen Truppen und einen umfassenden Friedensvertrag, der von der Europäischen Union, den Vereinigten Staaten und Russland im Rahmen der Vereinten Nationen garantiert wird. Heute, 12 Monate nach der Erklärung und Hunderttausende Tote später, wollen wir mit Jeremy darüber sprechen, wie wir diese nach wie vor dringenden Forderungen umsetzen und dabei neue Formen von Bündnissen entwickeln können. Herzlich willkommen, Jeremy. Valentina Orazzini, Gewerkschafterin und Aktivistin, ist Europabeauftragte der italienischen Metallarbeitergewerkschaft Podium im Dachverband Confederazione Generale Italiana del Lavoro CGIL. Valentina befasst sich intensiv mit der Reorganisation der Gewerkschaften und macht diese konkret in der Verknüpfung gewerkschaftlicher Kämpfe mit den sozialen Bewegungen. Dabei übernimmt die Coalizione Sociale eine besondere Rolle. Demonstrationen für mehr Arbeiterrechte, für Frieden und soziale Gerechtigkeit sind seit 2015 Ausdruck der Arbeit der Koalition. Valentina berichtet von dieser Arbeit und wird dabei auf die Bedeutung für den Kampf um Frieden eingehen. Wir sind gespannt auf deine Ausführungen. Ich bin Herbert Behrens, habe zuletzt als Gewerkschaftssekretär bei Verdi in Bremen gearbeitet. Politisiert worden bin ich über das Thema Krieg und Frieden und heute noch aktiv in unserem örtlichen kleinen Friedensbündnis. Ich bin in Niedersachsen Mitglied des Landesvorstandes der Rosa-Luxemburg-Stiftung. Wir wollen die Referentinnen und den Referenten jeweils 20 Minuten Zeit geben, um ihre Überlegungen vorzutragen. Anschließend wird dann Gelegenheit bestehen zum Austausch über das Vorgetragene. Ich freue mich auf eine interessante Debatte. Valentina, du hast das Wort.
So, herzlich vielen Dank, Genossinnen und Genossen. Das ist alle mit mein Deutsch, so I will switch to English. But really, I mean, this is not rhetorical. I thank you very much for organizing the conference and to have me here today, because I think that everything we can do, at any times we can take a position, anytime we can argue and have a debate about this is very precious confronted to the rhetoric, the hegemonic rhetoric of war we are confronted with. And I think this is, so I think it's really, 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 really important. And I think it's very difficult to us. I mean, if I look at the situation in Italy, if you take a stance for peace, the first things that happens that you have been labeled as a pro-Putin. I mean, even if we were struggling against, I mean, the regime of Putin because of the repression of social rights and democracy in the country. But nevertheless, I mean, the only things it's allowed to discuss about war, not to discuss about diplomacy and peace. What is making everything more complicated has been already highlighted by Janine Wissler, and I understand 100% what she said, I mean, about double rhetoric. And if I look about NATO, what's happening, about the position that Europe is taking, we had a discussion in the A2C Congress, so the Congress of the European Trade Union Confederation in Berlin, and there we discussed about, the double rhetoric we had about the fact that we said that we should stop any commerce, any trade with the occupied territories in Donbass, but we're not able to say that we have to stop any commerce with occupied settlement in Palestine. And this is the double rhetoric that we cannot accept. And at the same time, I come from one country in which we are, and I'm very proud about the fact that it's the place in which for a number of people, there is the biggest Ukrainian community. So where a lot of people has fled during the war and now is settling in the country. But I cannot accept, that we are very openly and happy to welcome people if they're blonde hair and blue eyes, and they are people dying in the Mediterranean Sea, or even if we are looking at, because, I have to be very clear. I am not against the fact that we have a rescue team going around the ocean to rescue 4 people who are going to visit Titanic. So anyone, who is in trouble in the sea needs to be rescued, but I cannot accept that people are dying in our coast and no one is discussing about it, and no one is organizing anything to go to catch 700 people with kids who are dying in Greece. And this is completely unacceptable from my perspective. And I think we are facing very dangerous time. If I look at the news this morning as I woke up and I look about what happens with Wagner and in Russia, and I was asking myself, of course, it's a very complicated question. It's complicated to answer to, but I was either asking to myself whether, Prigozhin is a crazy or simply asking for more money in the war, or either, then this is more also dangerous. There's someone who's convinced that a civil war in Russia could be a response, because if I look at what in the past, if we haven't learned what the intelligence agency has done with Taliban in Afghanistan, and what was the result of our good arguments about giving weapons against Russia there, we are really in a crazy time. So given the fact that we are in a very dangerous time, I think that as trade unionists, we have a double responsibilities. Why I say this? Because in this year, we saw all around Europe people mobilize on inflation, on the fact that the salary has been hit by the cost of living crisis, by the energy crisis, by the fact we have to discuss about industrial policies and climate change. But in a certain sense, we have to be very clear with the analysis. We cannot, as trade unionists, fight for industrial policies, fight for the energy crisis without taking into consideration the fact that the causes are inside the war and the need for a new balance. We cannot go in the street and simply ask for measures that are very linked to the national situation without taking account the fact we should fight, as I say, for a new common balance. And the balance, has been said yesterday, it's not something that can be reached against someone else, against Russia or against China. And so in that sense, I think we have a big responsibility, because otherwise we could end up to be corporatives, in corporativism, as a trade unionist. Because I tell you, when we are going into the trade unions meeting with the workers, it's not there is although willing to discuss about peace, of course, because people now prefer to discuss about simply the situation or the plant or the living condition. But as a trade unionist, if we want to have into mind another idea of the war, and that we want to put our struggles together in a in the broadest, idea that we have the duty, I think, to fight for peace together with the rest of our arguments when it comes to our collective bargaining and so on. Also because, as I said, this is very also problematic because it leads also to democratic problem in the relation with people, because once you are part of it, if as a trade unions you are, you give a corporativism response, then you are part of the war economy. And once you are inside the war of economy, what it ends up also from the European institution is that the regulation comes with, because you have to produce more weapons, then it's under attack. The fact you have to work as much as you can, and so they're attacking the working time. But this is, justified by the economy of war, and this is, I think, not acceptable. It has to be explained very clearly to the workers and to the citizens. And and also I see another very big problem when it comes to democracy, because if I look at the not simply of the increase of how much we spend in arms, but also the way, because if I look at the past and where we discuss as these are movement and trade unions, also in Italy, we always discuss about the fact that yes, but in a certain sense, the defense industry is also leading the research. Now it's completely the reverse. And this is, not to justify the past, but now, the research and that brings the changes into the military industry, it's all driven by private companies. And if I look at what happens, even if you look at what happens in the space with Elon Musk satellite eyes who have been used during the war, we're ending up in a situation in which the research that at the end of the day comes from the civil industry and arrives to the military one, and but to develop this research, of course, those private companies want to be reassured by the states that they will buy the amount of weapons that they are engaging to, and this is completely troubling to us. And what we did as Italian trade unions, so far, because I think you're interested to hear what we have done so far, and also to bring a little bit of optimistic, that there was a little bit, I would say the contrary, because we saw mass demonstrations around Europe, as I said, among salaries, pensions in France, and so on. They were rather more weak on peace. In Italy, we had the reverse. We didn't have the capability to mobilize unitary on peace, but we did have the possibility and the capability for the very first moment to mobilize against the war. I remember the first discussion we had, it was even before that Russia was, thank you very much, invading Ukraine, that we decide to have sit-ins and to organize demonstration. And we had a very, of course, complicated discussion from those who say, yeah, we have to demonstrate in front of the Russian embassy. And there was no saying, no, come on, this is not the proper way to address the point at the moment. And but we end up having several demonstrations. The last one was in November with 100,000 people in the square, in the streets in Rome. And what it was powerful since now, it's the possibility and the capability to discuss about peace together with trade unions, peace movements, organizations, and movements in Italy. Then I have to say, because this is reality, we are not in the condition of 2003, when we had 3 billion people in the streets against the Iraqi war. But nevertheless, what was important and still remain important is the process of the coalition. It has been said before, my trade unions as metal workers was very active and still very active in finding alliance together with other associations and movements. We started last year an extraordinary process of membership for the AMPI, which is the Association of Partisans in Italy, and we decided, confronted this time, we needed to open a cell of anti-fascist movement in each and every plant, and to discuss with the worker about how important and crucial Italy is to discuss about anti-fascism in this moment. So I think that, I mean, the key point, because we are really facing a very difficult time, and I mean, I don't have easy answer about what we, and I don't have recipes of what we need to do in the nearly next future. But of course, I think that the process of enlarging our coalition and our alliance is the most strategical decision that we can have. I will end up by saying one thing, and I start my militant. I mean, I was a militant in. I said before I was thinking about 2003, where we were into the streets, and that were very important years. I remember we were in the streets in Genova, we were in Porto Alegre. We were against, I mean, globalization, but we were against the globalization of the capital. We were not against the globalization of social justice. I mean, this was very clear at the moment, and it was very precious, the movement that we had into the streets at that time. And for me, that I was a student at the time, and then year after I decided to continue to be a militant inside my working place as becoming a trade unionist. It was very important because I saw the trade unions together with me in the streets. They were part of the movement and were together with us in the movement. So I think that, I mean, as a perspective, this is if we don't want to we want to avoid that the trade unions, of course, are only there to regulate, I mean, salaries and other stuff in the plants, but really want to play a role in changing the society. We need to open ourselves. We need to be open to the society, to the movements, and to work together and fight together into the streets. So thank you very much for having me there. And as we said in Italy, to the fight and to the work.
Valentina, thank you very much. Ein interessanter Aspekt über das Zusammengehen von Bewegung. Vielen Dank.